Okay.
East Country Club, there we go.
To you?
You did?
You were too busy.
Oh, I was. All right, thank you. All right, good evening, Timberlane. Welcome to the Thursday, October 20th, 2022. I just feel like you guys can really hear me tonight. School board meeting, if we can do a call to order. It's my first time, apparently. If we can do a roll call, please.
Michael Boucher.
Here.
Katie Knutson.
Here.
Shauna Manthorn. Here. Steve Finnegan.
Here.
Kristen Savage. Here. Kim McCormick. Kim Farah. Mark Sherwood.
Here.
Brian Boyle.
Okay, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We have some meeting minutes from the October 6th meeting. Board members, you want to just take a look at those? We do also have non-public minutes. Question mark? Yeah. Thank you.
Like I'm hybrid.
I do. You're mixed. You're a nice mix there, folks.
If you wouldn't mind just passing those, thank you.
No, I really don't. I'll accept a motion or,
I'll make a motion to approve the October 6, 2022 meeting minutes.
Second.
all right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have in the administrator's report for Mr. Krieger discussing the potential of OTs and PTs visiting the district from Riviera and Granite State. That's not correct.
Okay.
We have them visiting from North Shore Community College, and then we had who was visiting from Riviera and Granite State was,
SNHU is sending things in January.
so
and,
what type of interns are they sending them?
in the special education field.
Special education, okay.
So is there anything we need to add to that? Visiting to the district from Riviera and Grant, okay.
So it's OTs, PTs, and special education, so can we add that?
Yeah. Sally, you got that? Thank you. Any other discussion?
No, but are we gonna amend the motion?
Yeah, we do have to amend the motion. So,
I'm in the motion to accept them with the amendment.
right? Mike, you second that? Thank you. So I have amended motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you. All right. Do we have, non-public, sorry. Just take a look at those.
Wow.
Your TV.
We negotiated late last night.
I would like to make a motion to accept the October 6th, 2022 non-public minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Oh, Shauna can have it.
I'm gonna give it to Shauna.
You like that.
All in favor? 7, thank you. All right, if I can have those back. Thank you. All right, do we have any delegates or individuals?
Thank you, sir.
Not hearing any. We will move over to Matthew, our student representative.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in Spirit Week. Very exciting time at the high school right now. So Spirit Week is here, and it's been very exciting. We've had Pajama Day, Mismatch Day, Adam Sandler Day, Country versus Country Club, and tomorrow will be Color and Toga Day. And with that being said, there is a pep rally tomorrow at the high school in the gymnasium where students, mainly the senior class, will be wearing togas and marching around gym. It is always fun to see everyone embarrass themselves. There was the 15th annual carnival last night that various clubs and classes sold t-shirts and food in order to raise money for their club or class. Big shout out to Miss Libby and Student Council for their continuing efforts for the high school. During the pep rally also, there will be games that students will participate in, and they will be able to win prizes. College application season is here right now, and I'm very relieved that mine is done.
Well done.
Yes. And thanks to the school counseling department, students were able to get in their applications in a timely manner. They were very good at answering all questions that students had and gave them very good assistance. The school library is continuing with their Adopt a Book program, where students are assigned a bookshelf to take care of in order to gain community service hours. There is a football game tomorrow night starting at 6:30 at home. The theme is Blackout. Midsummer's Night Dream is in rehearsals right now, planning on performing November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Atkinson Academy had their ice cream social, which was held on October 7th, 2022. A very well attended event, great to welcome the community into the school. Thanks, Night Owls. Parent-teacher Zoom conferences were held on October 20th, 2022. Teachers will be discussing students' progress, work-study habits, and goals for this year. Early release day, Monday, October 24th, Atkinson Academy only will be having an early release day on this day. Beginning at 1 p.m., all staff will be participating in a required TRSD training. Harvest Fest and Parade at Atkinson Academy. Monday, October 31st, all grades will be participating in a parade on Monday. At approximately 2 p.m., all Timberlane elementary schools will be having this event today. Families are invited to attend the parade outside only. Class parties will be in teacher-determined rooms, and activities and snacks will be provided. The lip sync contest will be November 18th, Timberlane Performing Arts Center. An Atkinson Academy tradition returns. This event is open to Academy students in grades 2 through 5. Look for more information in the upcoming weeks. Danville School hosted their second food drive Friday of the year. The first Friday of every month, staff donate non-perishable items that are then distributed to local families in need. We are fortunate enough that our staff is so generous and that the family receiving these items are grateful for the resources they receive. Several Danville students are working with the innovation teachers and library media specialists to create and share a regular newsletter entitled The Hawk News. The first edition of this school year should be published very soon. Virtual parent-teacher conferences happen today during the early release time. Students will be dismissed at 1 p.m. and conferences will be scheduled in the afternoon and evening. Danville School will be hosting a costume parade at 2:15 on Monday, October 31st. All kindergarten class and grade 5 students will walk around the exterior of the building wearing costumes. Families are invited to watch the parade. The PTA is excited to host a fall festival at Danville School on Friday, November 4th from 5 to 8 p.m. More details to come soon. Pollard School. Parent-teacher Zoom conferences were held today virtually. Pollard only early release day. Thursday, October 27th, all Pollard staff will be participating in required training. 5th grade Halloween celebration, Friday, October 28th. The 5th grade parent committee will be hosting a celebration for 5th grade students only on the evening of October 28th. The Halloween parade, Monday, October 31st. All grades will be participating in the afternoon. Families are invited to watch the parade. We will be walking around the school campus and the town. On Tuesday, October 18th, administrators, along with school counselors and special educators, held a meeting with parents of 4th and 5th graders around social media. During the meeting, they shared information, resources, and time for discussion and other questions. Today, Thursday, October 20th, Mrs. Stafford held their first coffee and conversation of the school year. These are held a few times throughout the school year and provide parents with the opportunity to get updates on what is happening at Sandown in terms of students learning and to hear from parents regarding their thoughts and ideas. Parent and teacher conferences were also held today. Our educators would like to thank the amazing Sandown PTA for providing us with dinner tonight in between conferences. Sandown will be having our traditional Halloween parade on October 31st. Grades 1 and 2 will parade around the building while the rest of the school enjoys the parade. Parents of 1st and 2nd graders are welcome to watch. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, I am going to turn it over to Superintendent Cullen to talk about the middle school passion project.
Oh, great. We have Hunter Newman here with us today, this evening, I should say. And Hunter, why don't you come on up to one of those chairs with the microphones?
Welcome, Hunter.
And it's welcome back.
Welcome back, that's right.
So Hunter was here last year.
Yeah.
Samantha Mooney, who was his passion project partner, was unable to come this evening. But together, Hunter and Samantha were, their passion project was about the basketball court outside. They did also talk about beyond the basketball court, quite frankly, sort of just the outside of the middle school where students do have a very brief recess at middle school. And so Hunter came, he and I had put together some information prior. We shared some spreadsheet information back and forth. And Hunter was amazing in his estimates, quite frankly, of what things might cost. And just to refresh all of your memories, Hunter was here talking about this, and we just so happened to also had Mr. Inglesby here talking about the paving projects. And one of the things that Hunter highlighted was that the court outside needed to be repaved and really levelized, right? It sloped. And Hunter was concerned about injuries, and some students had sort of twisted some ankles and things like that, falling off the edge of the basketball court. Together we did a couple of other things, got some equipment for some of the games that were being played, and Hunter came back to talk a little bit about the fact that the board right then, in that moment, said, hey, by the way, Mr. Inglesby, during his presentation, it was actually Dr. Farah who's coming in, who initiated that part of the discussion, that we include perfect. It was like we scripted it. That we include the paving of the basketball court in that paving project. And so Hunter was going to talk a little bit about how students have benefited from that and how excited they were. I know when I went over there the first day of school, I went looking for Hunter in his classroom and found him, and they were pretty pretty excited to see how powerful their voice was in getting something accomplished like that. So, take it away, Hunter.
Anyway,
Right? Hunter, that's how most people respond when I talk.
Hunter, will
he
you be
just
on the board?
summarized what I was gonna say, so it's like,
Well, embellish.
Say it.
Tell us the student perspective more. That was my
Hunter, in a
perspective.
few years, you can apply to be the student rep, and you can say where Matt is, and you'll be part of it.
And you get to go before me.
yeah, yeah. It's benefited like everybody. Like I know a lot of my friends are like they love basketball, so when they saw like the newly paved courts, they were like super hyped because they were like it wasn't like the ball was gonna like they push it that way and it's gonna come back this way anymore, and it was like it was all level. There was new lines, so it was like we weren't like staring at it trying to figure out if it was in or out. We could like instantly tell it was out or in, and it's just made everybody's like playing basketball a lot easier for everyone.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Hunter, I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, did you grow like 6 inches since we saw you last time, right? Because I didn't even recognize you. And then number 2, are you dunking yet?
Yeah.
No,
No,
not
not yet. All right.
yet.
You're working at it.
I'm working on that,
All right.
but
Good.
I'm working. But I did grow like 2 inches.
You did? Just 2?
Just 2.
All right. Okay.
No more.
Awesome. No.
You
all
were
right.
very persuasive when you spoke with us, and when we took the tour, Mr. Inglesby reminded us of some of the points that you had made and made certain to point them out to us as we were taking the facilities tour. So, well done.
Thanks.
Nice job, Hunter. So it's getting used a lot?
Oh, it's getting used almost too much.
He wants an expansion
I
court
was just
now.
gonna
okay?
say, so.
I was going to say, what is your second part to your passion project? Do you got anything else?
Our second part was really like getting like lots of basketballs because I know like there's like probably 5 or 6 like different like recess balls in there, so like it's like everybody's running out to get them, and like it's like if you get there and there's like nothing left and you're going to having to ask somebody if you can use that when they're done, but it's like since it's such a short recess, it's you don't really get time to use it because when they're done using it, it's like recess is over.
What do you think the perfect number would be? Not too many so that there's chaos, but enough that everybody would get to use it.
Yep. I would think like I know a lot of my friends would like to play like little 1v1s in basketball, so I would think like maybe 3 basketballs, like
An additional 3?
Like 3 very good basketballs, because I know the ones there are kind of getting worn out, like they're like on their last legs.
Yep.
And we don't really use the footballs too much, so those are perfect, but I know we would need a gaga ball because people are like taking the soccer ball and using that as a gaga ball.
Okay.
And then there's people wanting to play soccer, and it's like they don't really have anything to use, so it's
Gotcha.
like there's this massive whole thing about it.
You might have to explain.
Yeah, what
Gaga
is a
ball.
gaga ball?
It's basically
It's a rage.
like oh god, it's basically like it's like a rubber ball that like it's not meant for like kicking, it's more for like hitting. Like it's not like all leathery and like a soccer ball. It's
Okay.
like rubber.
Could you give a quick description of the game? Not everybody knows
It's like-
Gaga ball.
There's a heck.
Game.
It's a game.
It's a game.
Yeah, it's a game.
If you drive behind the school, there's a gaga pit back.
Yeah, there's a wooden gaga ball pit, and like basically people.
It's like an octagon, right? Is it an octagon?
It's like an octagon, and like
Yeah.
people stand in it, and like they hit the ball like trying to hit like people's shins and trying to get them out.
Modern
You're
day
in a
tame
contained area.
Okay.
You're
dodgeball.
you
Yeah.
roll
So it's
the-
like a really
but
intense
below the
dodgeball
waist.
game.
It's like-
I bet you my 7-year-old probably knows about
definitely.
this, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, all
It's a
right,
it's
good.
a big rage.
It's like a
Oh, yeah.
ground level dodgeball in a pit,
Yeah.
right? Played, low.
So part of your passion project, I think you should have Carl show up during your lunch breaks and play with you.
Yeah.
Because like some one-on-ones and some gaga.
Is that a motion? If so,
I think
I'll
that-
second that motion.
I think that would be, I think we should all come watch that.
Hunter, thank,
I will gladly, we'll bring Chris here too.
Bend over to reach the guy.
Hunter, again, thank you. I think you were very, I would agree with Mark, you were very persuasive last year, and I think it's really important to know for all the students and parents watching that, a small idea like you had, right, has had such a big impact on not just you, but all of your friends as well. So, well done, really, really well done.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Hunter, or is that?
I also just want to say a massive thank you to everyone here because I couldn't have done it without you guys.
Awesome.
Great.
Good for you,
Great
Hunter.
job.
Great job.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming in.
Good job, Mom.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Moving forward now, we have the athletics annual report. This is really
Just informational.
I don't think there's anything to do.
yeah, there's nothing really. Board members, I don't know if you had any questions about this. No? Okay. Moving on. We do have a couple policies for first read. And then we'll talk a little bit about the policy review list. But first are the three policies for first read, BBBH, which is organization and operation of the school administrative unit, the SAU, school board, BEA, school board meetings, and DIH, fraud prevention and fiscal management.
I'll make a motion to approve those policies for first read.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I was just curious, is the policy BBBH going to be replaced with something else? Or,
This looks like,
Yes.
yeah.
We should have it replaced with organization of the, it's probably covered in another policy
believe it
on
is.
organization of the school board. This was just for the SAU board, so I would think I was wondering if it should be, but I don't think so. I think it just,
It's not. The reason why it's not is this was an organization of the old SAU unit that included Hampstead and Timberlane. So the repealing of this is because it's no longer relevant.
gotcha.
It had been specifically for multi-district, and so now that Hampstead is no longer part of it, it's moot. Thank you. It took a while for the Rolodex to wheel through.
Right. It's been a couple weeks. Yeah. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? 8. All right. Great. Thank you. Oh, the next piece of this is if you look after the policies, you'll see that there are the policy lists. Just so none of you have to squint or count, I did it for you. So currently on this list, we have, so the highlighted blue are the priority policies that the policy committee is working on. There are 60 of those policies. And so we will continue to add those onto each of the policy committee meetings monthly that we have. We still have a big task, right? I mean, but I think we are typically getting to 6 to 10 policies a meeting.
I believe from last, I want to say, was it November that we really started to grab some traction?
Yeah.
We've brought forward and the board has approved, I believe it was 27 policies. Those are the green highlighted ones?
32.
32. Oh,
Counted
good.
those as well.
Oh, good. Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, so I
So-
mean, yeah, so it's a great point, Chris, in that, 32 policies over, I want to say from July to now have been approved. So we're making some traction. We still have some ways to go. And this is the priority list, I believe, that was created by our former superintendent.
So the list was created, we did the highlighting. And I know, Dr. Farrer, you asked a question about that last meeting, and it's too small to read, but I went through this, Kelly and I went through this, and did, highlighting. And what we noticed, as I was going through the priority ones, doing the blue highlighting, was there weren't dates indicating when they needed to be done. So that's something I want to take a more detailed look at. So, for example, one of the policies that the board approved last time, under the notes, it says recommended, for update, or recommend to adopt the policy, but we didn't have any dates there. So I think one of the things we'll do between now and the next policy meeting, and then in that policy meeting, is we should go through and really look at, we need to cross-reference and look at the New Hampshire School Board Association updates, not only from this fall, but last fall, regarding the policies that are required and have been updated. So we don't have all of that information contained on this spreadsheet, so I think it would be good for the policy committee to have that information on this sheet as well, so that we know which ones we need to do. For example, the one that we approved last week regarding home education it should have been already in place by August 31st of 2022. But we got it approved just at our last school board meeting. So we don't want to wind up in that situation again where we're behind on something. So we need to, take the initiative and better understand which policies need to be updated immediately and which ones, because there are some new. I was at a legislative update in a workshop, and there are, pieces of legislation that are moving forward for September 1st of 2023 that we need to be sure that we have policies in place.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just, under the key, the pink highlight, what is the action note there? I can't read that one.
Kelly can probably tell
I
us.
can't, I'm just,
Requires
Reviewal. No, reviewal.
reviewal.
It is a word.
It's a word.
It is a
It
word.
is a word. I like it.
So it's
And
just,
I
so
can't believe I
I
can read
think
it.
for the board, I think ultimately, looking at this, what I think we want to, the update that we want to provide to the board is truly that the blue highlighted ones, which I think everybody can see without glasses, not funny, okay.
I can't see it with my, I can see.
So, is that there are 60 of them, and those will essentially be our marching orders as we move forward.
Right.
We'll take the dates that they need to be implemented by, but we will prioritize those as we
Yeah,
move
we
forward.
need dates, yeah.
This list was current as of changes as of December 21. What you're saying, Chris, is nobody has looked at required updates or mandated policy changes that have come down from the state since then, which was why we got caught with this homeschooling one. So I think priority number one is to go from January of this year through and make sure that we know what the legislative updates were. That's the
Right.
first priority.
Right.
And then put those in here and then reprioritize the blue ones, because you don't think 60 is a lot, but that's
No,
2
60
years.
is a
No, we think,
And so you need to prioritize.
Yes,
Even the.
So the next time, I'd like to see any policies that need to be changed as of, from December till now, and then reprioritize these, 60 in the blue, so that policy committee can move forward.
that makes sense,
so,
I think that was,
the intention.
yes, when I was doing the highlighting, I was cross-referencing this with the fall update from NHSBA. But exactly what you just said, I need to do the same. So, I think I captured all of them in the blue, but we will double check. I need to do the same from last January. And I just want to identify the actual dates that those, if they have a date because, it was new legislation or they've been updated through legislation, I want to make sure that we have that date. Yes, what,
And I just want to make sure that we change the language. This is not you, Chris, that you have to do it, right? This is our team, and this is why we have the policy committee. And so I want to make sure that this is a team approach to this. There's a lot of policies in there. There's a lot of changes that happen, both from policy-wise, legislative-wise. So this is a big undertaking. I appreciate the work that was done already to identify the 60. And we'll go forward and make sure that that we're not going to get caught behind any policies that need to be updated.
yeah. Thank you.
Any questions on that? And the policy committee, I believe, meets in 2 weeks from tonight.
November 4th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is a review, just a sample list of the 2023 warrant articles. I don't know that we have to go through all of these, but just for the school board, and particularly the new school board members, this is what will go to the ballots in March. Well, obviously, all of those highlighted X's will be filled in with a number. What you'll see here and why this is a few pages long is because we have all of our bargaining units that we're currently bargaining with right now on here. So the hope is to go forward, with all of those on for March for the voters to be voted on. There any questions on that? Yeah, go ahead.
Just reversing a little bit, sorry if it's out of order. Did we hit on the policy committee, the DIH fraud prevention, and improve it for first read?
We did.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. That was thorough. Sorry.
I was just able to give a good quick answer. Go ahead.
Okay, so I noticed that somebody snuck in some warrants here that I've not seen before.
Well.
And here she comes. I'm
there-
guessing that was you.
Well, it was a collaborative effort. I came back again, like I said, I was at a legislative update workshop. It was the Kidder Law Conference, actually, and I attended a workshop regarding finance, and so there was some pieces regarding fund balance and capital reserve funds and emergency contingency funds, and came back and talked to Marie, and she said, yeah. And we talked about, that we should be at least considering some of these things and bringing it forward. So
Yeah, so,
Maria knew a whole lot more about it than I did, which was great.
so I think we have discussed this, especially with the utility costs that we're gonna be facing next year. Well, not only utility, there's a lot of costs that we're gonna be facing. We are just basically don't know because we just received the rate for electricity. One of the components of the rate is dependent on natural gas, and companies are not locking that specific component of the rate. So we're at the mercy of whatever they want to give us and whatever they want to bill us. So talking to some of my peers, and also, as Chris said, he did come from the conference where he also met with other superintendents and other school district employees. A lot of us are proposing to our boards to create this emergency contingency fund, which will be just as emergency. Is a fund that will be governed by the school board. You will have, if it passes, you will have the authority to spend the fund. Whatever is not spent, it goes back to the taxpayers. So it's just like a safety net for the unknown that we're literally facing now every day. Because anything that we maybe have in the budget that was voted for, we don't know if it's enough anymore. So it's just a contingency fund that will go back to taxpayers if it's not used.
Do you want to have a discussion on each of these?
Yeah, can we? Yeah, I think that's
I think
probably.
Brian has a,
Yeah, Brian.
I believe we tried this a few years ago.
no, I don't, no, we did not do this sort of warrant, no, I don't think
We
so.
tried to, it was zeroed down, the school board attempted that, of course, we weren't facing what the utilities going on right now. I believe we tried a contingency fund, and it was zeroed down, or put down to $1 in the last 5 years at the
Really?
deliberative.
I
We
just-
had some kind of reserve or contingency we were trying to do.
Well,
for everything you
I
said.
do remember what we tried to do was give the board the authority to use the capital reserve fund without it going to the voters. I don't remember a warrant on a contingency fund.
I think it was contingency.
I think you're thinking of the capital reserve fund, trying to turn it over to the school board to spend it. But you might be right. I might have forgotten.
Again, so and that's a lot of money, 500,000, but
Yeah, well, so that's sort of where my question kind of came in is, I worry about going with an article like this with that much money. Where did we come up with that cost?
We're not raising that money. That is from the
Yeah.
from the fund balance. So we take $500,000 from the fund balance at the end of the year, and we reserve it for emergency. So we're not asking taxpayers for this money. So
But don't we usually vote that anyway?
Yes,
We have the option to vote that as the board, so why would we want to put it in a warrant?
well, what you guys vote is for the capital reserve fund, which we only can allocate money to that if we have capital money left, which we haven't have as long as I've been here. For 3 years, we have not have capital money left. We have
Right,
spent it
right.
all.
But don't we also vote on how much of the unreserved fund balance we want to hold back, and then we return the rest of the
So
taxpayers?
that's the next, the fund
fund
balance
balance
retention fund, which is our
retention.
RSA 198.4.
No, but I understand what that is, but I'm still back on this contingency fund. Because we have the option of essentially doing this when we vote how much money we're returning to the voters. These two are kind of tied together. Because the school board has the option of retaining up to what for a fund balance retention?
That's the next one, which
2.5%.
right now we have up to 2.5%.
We have the option to go to 2.5%.
Correct.
Yes.
Towns
that's-
have a higher option then, right? Don't towns go to 6%?
I don't know
Okay,
municipalities.
so the school
I know-
districts only can go up to 2.5% on fund retention?
Yes,
that
that used to be RSA 198.4, which
Right.
is the next article that I'm proposing. Last year, the RSA was changed, and now they are allowing up to 5%. Now, the difference with that one is that has to go to the voters to be used, and it can only be used for emergency or if we exhaust the budget.
I'm just
So
doing
so I just want
calculation
to,
here.
while you do your calculations, so I just want to, for my mind, I just want to try to better understand this. So we have, as the board, we have the authority at the end of the year to take up to the 500,000 to put into the capital reserve fund, correct? Or the
2.5.
Yeah,
No.
I think we should talk about them separately, right?
Yes.
Because
Let's talk about
it's easy to
capital.
get confused.
The first one that we have here, the emergency contingency fund, will be to ask the voters to give the board to reserve $500,000 for unexpected expenses out of the fund balance at the end of the year, where the board has the authority to release the funds, like to pay for over utilities or anything that went over budget. That's not restricted, and the board will have authority for it. The second one is governed by an RSA 198.4, which the district adopted it back in 2012. There was a warrant article in 2013, where we adopted the 2.5%. Now the RSA is allowing to increase that to 5%. Now that money has to, if we need to utilize it, we have to go to the voters, we have to hold a special meeting, and it can only be used for emergencies or if we exhaust entirely our budget. That's the 2.5%, or now I'm requesting it to increase it to 5%.
Okay,
So
I got it.
go ahead.
I would be against increasing it to 5% because 2.5% of 70 million is 1.75 million. That's a lot of cash sitting in there. If we increase to 5%, that's 3.5 million. I just don't think we need to increase it to that amount. especially where you're now then saying, whatever is in that fund retention balance, we might pull out 500,000 for emergency contingency.
No, one thing doesn't have to, one article does not depend on the other. They
No, I
completely.
understand they don't depend on each other, but let's say we pass Article 20. Article, sorry, this is not numbered. So we pass this, and now I have 3 million in my fund retention balance. All of a sudden you say I'm $400,000, I'm $600,000 short. Let's say the previous article passes. You can take 500,000 of that and use it, but you can't take the next 100,000 and use it without going to the voters. Is that correct?
No, because I only have 500 on the one that I can use.
That's what I'm saying, so you
I'm
follow what I'm
following,
saying?
Yeah.
Now, it also doesn't require that you take all 5%. It's up to 5%.
Correct. So I think what Kim is saying is if they both pass, and for some reason we come up with, the need to procure 600,000, we could take out the first 500,000, but then we're still looking for 100,000. If the second one passed, in order to make up that 100,000 deficit, it would then have to go to the voters and could only be used for something that is an emergency, but it would have to go to the voters. That was your question, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's,
Right.
I guess my question is what's the downfall of having it go to the voters other than having a special meeting?
Ticket
Them
shot?
saying no?
Yeah.
Especially if
Sticker
it's an
shock.
emergency situation, that might be.
right. I mean, Marie, I'm not.
If it wasn't
These are-
for the
Not
climate
opposed to
that we're
these.
living right now and the fact that I could be faced with a default budget that is not gonna be enough, and I know
Right.
that for a fact, I wouldn't be asking for this. I need a safety net.
I'm fine with these.
I think our district needs a safety net this year.
I think
And we have
appreciate your
time
honesty.
to consider all of these
Yeah,
things,
we
so
don't need an
all
answer
kinds
right
of
now.
questions.
The
No,
warrants are
I'm
not
glad I
going
brought them
to.
early, this is
Yes,
why.
we
This is why
appreciate
I
it.
asked
It's a
Chris
safety
to
net.
draft the warrant.
And it goes back to the
Appreciate that.
taxpayers, whatever we don't use, it just goes right back. It's just a safety
Yeah.
net because of the circumstances that
Your
I'm
concern with the
facing next
default budget
year.
is something I had not considered, so.
Yeah.
If we end up with default budget, I am telling you right now, we are in trouble.
Yeah, with the energy costs alone.
Just the energy cost alone, no energy, transport, anything.
Right.
It's a lot.
Okay.
Well, transportation though is contractual.
It can go, yeah, that can go. And actually,
We-
utilities, I'm waiting on response.
Okay, all
Couple
right,
things.
so board members, we have this to review, I guess, if we have, are there any more discussions?
I do want to discuss the last, what is your rationale for essentially draining that fund?
So that's based on probably discussions that we have at the CIP. I don't know if that's something that the board will consider if we use that money for some of the projects that we have that we will be proposing coming up, if we can use those funds that had been assigned for capital improvements. So put it in front of the voters for some of the HVAC units that we need to replace, or for some of the boilers that we need to replace.
I'm not against that. I think the last time that we did this, which was for the middle school roof, we actually called out the project. So that way, if the voters say no, they're saying no to that project. If they say no to this,
Oh, no, yeah, that's why you have
That's the
XXX, because
X
you guys will assign the project that you want to
Right.
put on it.
right. My concern though with doing that then, again, this is almost, it really shouldn't be used as a safety net, but you could use some portion of this. You could go, say we ran out of money and we had some major capital thing, we could do a special meeting to pull money from this.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know, because we now have a list of all these projects that we
yeah.
need to get done. If we start taking care of things and prioritizing what needs to be taken care of, so things don't deteriorate more and even further, then I'd rather be proactive. Again, it's up to you
Yeah.
guys. It's your capital fund, and
Yeah.
I'm just proposing.
Yeah, I don't
Makes sense.
know. All right.
Okay.
What I'll do is I will share the materials from the conference that I attended. That might be helpful for all of you, just to have that to look at some of that information. It might answer some of your questions, and it might prompt some new questions that we can get answers to. Or
Yeah.
Maria probably knows the answers to.
I'd also still, I'd like to give the board members a chance to sort of digest this and maybe discuss this at our next meeting. if that's
Absolutely, and
okay.
if you have any questions in between, just feel free to reach out. I can give you information that I have, which is
Thank you.
usually from the DOE. That's where I get my information from.
Steve, just so you know, usually at this time of year, we put the warrant on the agenda every time
Yeah.
so that we just keep discussing it.
discussing it.
So
Okay, great.
if people want to add warrant articles,
Yep.
say you have
Yep.
something you want, you can.
Right.
Yeah,
Put it on
continue
here.
to, so this will be, okay, super. Awesome, thank you, Maria, appreciate that.
But Maria, you can stay, because I'm sure.
Yeah, next is the CIP update.
You want me to, I'll take the lead on that
All
since
right.
I'm co-chairing the CIP committee.
All right,
So briefly, the capital improvement plan is a 5-year plan that the district puts together to look at major projects, and we up that amount, what's a major anything over
20?
30?
It was 30,000.
30,000, anything over 30,000. So we have put this together, and in the spring, that committee's supposed to meet and then propose to the school board what they feel we should put into the upcoming budget for capital improvements. Now, this year, we're currently in FY 2023, correct? All right? We have not spent some of this money, the money that's in the capital for this year, because we entered into a performance contract with EEI to take a look at the entire campus so that we can have a better informed decision as to how we're gonna spend our money and what we're looking at for a spend. So at some point, we would probably want them to come in here because they now have done an evaluation of the entire district. In a nutshell, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, we're at a point at which our buildings need major work throughout the district. The middle and high school campuses, I think of them as a car that is reaching its point. Do you keep putting money into it, or you go to fund a new building? This came up at the last meeting. I don't think there's a appetite out there to fund new building projects in the district. But if that's something that the board wants to look at, then we should look at least some preliminary engineering study to get a ballpark of what that might cost. I think we could pull that out of some board funds. If we're not going to do that, we need to invest more on an annual basis in our buildings. Right now, we've been spending $1 million to $1.5 million a year. In order to maintain and not keep going further back, we probably need to spend about $3 million, maybe more. And we might also want to look at doing a lease where we get this money up front and then building it into the budget over time. But EEI will need to speak to that a little more. So that's kind of where we're at. So when the CIP committee we met a couple times, and the second time, we asked EEI to come in based on their assessment and make a determination as to what they thought we should spend this year's capital money on, which, remember, we have more than we anticipated because we had revenue come in from the state that the voters approved to let us to hold. So for this year, you have a list of projects that are up over $2 million. Most of these have some sort of payback in the terms of energy savings, and then some of these actually have rebates. So these include LED conversions of lights at all the schools, which the payback on that is probably under 5 years. Upgrades to pneumatic controls in the middle school for the new boiler systems, correct?
Yeah, for everything.
For everything. Replacing a roof in Atkinson, and replacing some electrical panels at Sandown Central that they've been having issues with. So that's what CIP is proposing that we spend the money on. That's a board decision. So, should I stop there? You want me to
No,
go
I
to
just-
next year?
No, yeah, can we just stop right there for a second? I just
Okay.
have a question. So, given what you just said about the state of our buildings district-wide, these are the 4 top priorities to spend $2 million on this year that the CIP team came up with? Are there, I guess my
This was
question.
based on, this was, EEI gave us a list and prioritized it, and then we discussed it. Yes, and so we ultimately came up with this list.
Okay.
Just to add to that, this list is also not the full list of items
Right,
being mentioned.
which I assumed, but I guess my question is like, you know, over $1 million to turn the LED lights. That's great, and there's a potential cost savings in the long run. But if our buildings are falling apart at this point, does that help us move that forward? I guess, is that like a top priority versus other projects that are on there to?
Well, actually, we had quite the discussion about it because I was not thinking this was a top priority. And then I was convinced otherwise. So if you want to go back, at the next meeting, we can go back and relook at what the CIP did if the board wants to evaluate it. Because, well, for instance, here you go, Steve. If you don't think this is a priority, you can bump LED conversions out and bring the Danville boilers up into this year, and that's $1 million.
Yeah, it's not. I'm.
So
I'm
one of
just
the
one
reasons,
nine,
one
right?
of the
So-
reasons why we did that is with the the way we were looking at prioritizing it is there are some that were needs. There's going to be a roof that will be failing perhaps within 2 to 3 years. That's obviously a priority. And if you look at the other features for year one, proposed for year one, with the exception of the electric panels in Sandown, which burned and melted, so that's kind of a priority. We were looking at something, we're going to be asking the taxpayers to heft a fairly heavy burden, and the LED lights are one of the only things that would, A, benefit all the taxpayers in all the towns, and have an immediate rebate.
And the savings for that rebate was also the shortest out of all the other projects that you
Yeah.
suggested.
And that's fine. I guess if the building crumbles and the LED lights are useless, right?
We'll see it better.
Steve, I don't think the buildings are.
I'm being facetious
Yeah,
in a way, but I
right.
guess what I hear in one aspect is that we have to invest now $3 million, or the recommendation is to invest an additional $1.5 million a year in our campuses because the buildings are that bad. It just feels to me, and again, I'm one person, it just feels to me that if we're raising the flag right now and there's an alert that our buildings are in poor condition and we have to invest more money in it, to me, LED lights should not be a priority. And I get the rebate piece of this. I get that there's a quick, rebate, but again, I would like to see all of the projects and better understand, how the CIP team came to those discussions.
Do you have the list that we had at the CIP committee?
I don't.
I
Maria,
do.
maybe we, maybe
I mean,
they
am I-
can
I
It
do
was,
don't
no,
know,
it was
what's
here.
your-
So on it,
I'm one
I'll
person,
be
so I-
candid here. If you look at the list, add them together. So we looked at what they had suggested, and we kind of did this weighted, okay, what is year one, what is year two? And quite honestly, I was uncomfortable asking voters from one town who feel as if they're disproportionately carrying a tax burden to derive no benefit at all, when there was an easy solution that all the towns would benefit from for shorter change within, with a faster rebate period.
And my counter to that is, we had no one from any towns attend the public hearing of the budget, and we had no questions on the budget.
I know,
So I
I
really
know.
don't think the townspeople are worried about the fact that Danville is gonna get boilers, and we want LEDs.
I'm worried about- yeah.
So that was my counter to Mark's argument. And
Yeah.
so I absolutely could be persuaded to not do LEDs, or to at least do some of the LEDs and move other projects forward.
And I'm
But-
not putting my stake in the sand either.
I mean, I guess, like, do you guys understand where I'm coming?
Oh,
from?
absolutely.
I know.
Like, that's,
We had
that's,
this, we've had,
okay.
we had this,
We're
but,
danced.
but it was a different group. So, and the board ultimately gets to make the decision, so I
Yeah.
think we need to go back, Maria, to the list that we had last time, and put it on the agenda for the next board meeting and have the board hash it out again.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Because there were about, I think there were about, I wish I had
There was
brought it with
11.
me. There was 11 projects.
Yeah, I looked at
weren't
earlier today, I didn't think of bringing it.
there? Yeah, I didn't think of bringing it either.
Well, because that's, the CIP basically asked EI, boil it down to
Right.
whatever,
I asked
10 or
EEI to
10
come in
10 or
with $4
12
million.
projects.
Right.
So that's just a shorter list
Okay.
of
Brian?
projects.
Well, I won't be at the next meeting, but,
Neither will I. It might not
Oh,
be-
well, then, you know.
probably
but
won't be
I
a good
think
meeting
the,
to do this.
I think that the wall situation you showed me the other night, I bet that's not even on this list. Am I right?
It's part of the bigger list, so they
Yes.
came in with multiple, like, they came in with an overview that was very daunting to bring toward the CIP, because it's stuff that nobody even considered, and the fact that it's gonna be significant.
I guess there's everyone in this room is probably familiar with the walls over at the Little Gym, and it's been a story for, I don't know, 10 to 15 years anyway.
And at Sandown Central,
Okay.
and at Danville, and at,
That's fine. So, I spoke briefly with Maria last night. You guys found you got your hands on a 2012 report or something that
Yep.
identified what the issues are. I think that whatever that potential fix is, I think should be factored in to what the board does next year.
This year, we have $2
We're talking
million
about
this
this
year.
year. Well, even part of this money, what I'm talking about. Oh, you mean get it done
But part
right?
of, half of this, $2 million is for this current year.
Okay.
I think it
Then-
should be factored
before
into
June.
this year.
Right now then, so, because
Yes.
we don't know what that is, so whether that's 50,000, 150, I don't know what that is.
I
To do
think,
that.
I think we're gonna be a lot more than $2 million to fix those walls, because they're gonna have to come down.
No, okay.
Oh.
Okay,
I-
now, if different people have, I haven't heard
no.
from one person yet say they have to come down.
So without getting too deep into the conversation, to me, I just, again, I think the reason why I brought this up is I think I would like the board truly to see the projects and to better understand, to me, what, like, risk versus reward here. Like, if there are higher risk projects, I think we have to truly look at those things first. And really, again, we have this sum of money now that I think we have to really think about what we're spending our money on, especially if we can't save $3 million, moving forward because of rising cost, right? So I'd like to have the board just see these lists and, maybe come up with high risk priorities that you're seeing, Carl, you're seeing, Maria, and put that on an agenda, maybe not the next one, but the one after that when we're all here.
Would you like to also have EEI then come to present? They were going to do an overview. We were asking EEI to come and do an overview of their recommendations. Do you want that at the same meeting?
I don't. I'd like to see these first. It seems like EEI gave us what their recommendations are. No, they didn't?
No, they pulled recommendations out of a bigger, broader report.
Right.
Okay.
The reason they didn't give us spend $300,000 on walls is because EEI needs the board to say to them, no, we're not building a new school.
Right.
Reprioritize it based on that. Or we're building a new school, we don't care if the walls crumble in 5 years. That's
But
really, that's
can't
why
we-
this did not come in.
Yeah.
You need to see the entire EEI.
That's what we talked about the last meeting,
Right.
that we really needed that information before
Right.
we could go any further with
Yeah.
any of these decisions, so what, I thought we were
You
gonna
want-
try to get them in.
Right.
I
Well,
don't
they were
know,
gonna be
should we-
for the 4th, but it doesn't make sense to have them here on the 4th if we're gonna be short some.
Yeah, so maybe we'll look at the second meeting in November. Additionally, to go back to what you
18th.
said earlier, Kim, about that engineering study, can we do both? Can we find money to do an engineering study so that we at least have that information to see what
17.
what a new building would, or should we not go down that path and really truly just focus on the the savings of this.
I think maybe we should go down that path, just to be financially responsible here. One way or the other, we're going to be asking everybody in our towns to shoulder huge burdens, an increase in the maintenance by a factor of 2 or 3 over what we have been spending, or, pony up and decide, okay, we actually need new buildings, be it, in addition to Sandown North or the middle school or the high school. Perhaps if the total costs were better appreciated by everybody, and, we're looking at a $100 million project, or ponying up an extra $2 million per year in addition to what we have been, maybe that would, make the pill go down a bit easier. One way or another, we have properties that we need to maintain, or they're going to cost us more in the long term. So I think that is something that we should do.
You
My
need a
2
set of
cents.
plans, though. And if you're gonna look, and we say engineering costs, you're talking about come up with a set of plans to build new schools?
I don't.
An approximation.
My understanding from EEI was not the full-blown plan like here, this is where the science wing is going. No, all it was a basic, okay, if you build a box this big, this is how much it's gonna
This many
cost you.
classrooms, taking down what you have, this is approximately, you get to work within this parameter. A cost estimate.
I thought they said it was like 35,000 to do
35 is
that,
what they said.
correct?
That's exactly what they said.
To do that?
So,
Well,
but either
let's
that
have
one.
this- Let's have this discussion after
Yeah.
we listen to EEI again.
I think that's a good idea. So let's, if we can, Kelly, let's, for the 17th, is that what you said?
Yeah.
If we could have EEI come and give a presentation on the 17th, and if we could provide for the board a list of all of the projects.
But remember, they don't have a list of all the projects.
Right, but yes.
But if we can see
understood.
the projects that are from one
which these were
perspective,
culled.
and then hear what they have to say, and then,
Okay.
Could we share any of the reports, or do we have a summary report or anything
don't
that could be
have a-
shared? We
we
don't have
don't have
anything
a-
yet that we can share.
So the direction from the CIP was, it was within $3 million, what will be things that we can do? Because
And so that's
what
what
we
they
have
did.
is $2 to $3 million a year,
Right.
it's not.
Just
don't
for
have-
instance, the front canopy at the high school is starting to deteriorate, and they were worried about it, and one of the options was to fix it, and it was almost $1 million just to fix that canopy, so, it's decisions like that that are gonna have to be made, it's
Yeah, and
$1 million to fix that canopy,
to replace it.
To replace it.
or replace it.
So we
Well, my
want to.
What's the cost to remove it?
Yeah.
right.
Well, probably
Well,
not.
but again, I think this is the point of,
No,
this is the
this
point of the
is
school
an
board, right? I
Just
mean, we
one of
need to
those
have-
things that was sitting there, and
But again, I think this is the point of having all of the information so that this board can make those difficult decisions, right? That we think are gonna be best for the district, both today and moving forward in the future. So, it sounds like if we can get a list of the projects, it sounds like that's gonna be a little bit of legwork. So, and we'll have EEI come in on the 17th and we'll revisit this.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So I know exactly where you're trying to go with this, where we're looking at these projects and you're thinking about all the actual conditions of the buildings. Even the other 4 items that aren't on here that we kind of rejected, it still doesn't really contribute that much to the problems of the school. And I didn't get to see the full performance review, but I imagine even their longer list still doesn't do enough
Right.
to address the real problems of the school. So, like we already said, I do agree that we should have the performance review or some sort of summary of it, but we definitely should have some sort of study to determine if maybe we should look towards creating new schools. Because one of the things that is going to become a continuing problem, we're also asking for a little bit more money for capital improvement. A few years down the road, we might have to ask for even more money on a regular basis. So the way I look at this is that we're basically just putting up Band-Aids, and each so many years, we're creating bigger Band-Aids. So I think we're at that point now where we may have to make the most difficult decision to go in the other direction.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think let's hear from EEI, let's get all the information, and then, I think this is a really good discussion that we're gonna continue to have. Go ahead, Ken.
I do think we should go ahead and authorize the replacement of these electric panels in Sandown Central.
That's
This is a
a necessity.
no-brainer. And it's nothing in terms of the total amount of cost. That way they can move forward with them.
Yeah.
Probably the roof in Atkinson, because if the roof in Atkinson, that was one of
winter.
the big priorities. I'm gonna make a motion that we use some of the current capital improvement money to replace the electric panels in Sandown and to replace the roof in Atkinson.
Second that. Sorry, man.
It still leaves another $1.5 million for this year.
No, we have.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Any discussion on that? So that would leave about 1.7 million left for this year. I know.
Impressive in your head. That's
The
impressive.
difference is you can do that in your head. I need a calculator. Any discussion on those two projects? So,
Safety reasons, it's a no-brainer.
and Carl, just to hear from you, you would classify those both as safety concerns right now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
The electrical panels probably should have been replaced 2 years ago when the fire actually took place.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to authorize the replacement of the Atkinson Academy roof and the Sandown Central electrical panels. All in favor? Nope, that was 8, so that's everybody. Great. Great. Great discussion. We'll continue it, definitely moving forward, so. Next is Maria, you can just stay right there. Did you want to give an update on the voucher program?
Sure.
Thanks.
So I reached out to the Department of Education to have a better understanding about the voucher program because I have received a lot of inquiries about it. I wanted to make sure that I had a good understanding of what it was and why people are panicking or having such emotional moment with the program. What I was told by the Office of Finance at the Department of Education is that it is a program that is not new. There are students that have been in this program for years now. What it is if a family decides to pull a student out of a district in New Hampshire, they have the option to apply to this program. The guidelines to the program are very similar to the free and reduced guidelines. The family has to be within the 300% of the poverty line to be able to qualify for this program. Currently, there are 164,000 students in the state of New Hampshire, and 273 students are part of this program out of the 160,000. The way this person explained it to me is not different than when a student moves out of your district. So if a student that goes to the middle school moves to Salem tomorrow, we lose that ADM at that student. So we are not gonna get adequacy aid for that student. It's no different than that. The adequacy that we receive from the state is a formula which is pretty straightforward. Is depending on the number of students that our district serves. If a student moves out of the district half year, we still have half of the adequacy for that student. If the student moves out, it's not part of our accounts, we just don't get. The difference with this program is that for those students that have moved out, that have moved into that program out of our district, the state is actually giving us some adequacy aid. So they are giving us 50% of the adequacy aid on year 1, and then another 25% on year 2, which we do not receive from students that actually leave our district. What does that mean to us? In the big scheme of things, really nothing. I mean, we have I think it's 6.7 student count that had left our district for that, for which we just received, or we're going to receive $20,000
Yeah.
for the first year, and next year we will receive a little bit more. We are not gonna change any instructional structure for 7 students, I don't believe. I mean, I'm not in the academic side, but when 7 students move out of the district of 3,400 students, that doesn't mean anything. So it really doesn't impact either adequacy or operating expenses, so that's.
Just a really clarifying question. So we talked about the adequacy. Did I say that? I probably didn't say that right, but
Yes,
aid
adequacy
that
aid.
when they move out. What about when do we get aid if they come into the district?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
So the way the
Even through the
adequacy.
even through a half year? We do, okay.
So the way the adequacy aid works is at the end of the year, we have to report to the Department of Education how many students we serve through the year, right? So say we serve 3,500 students. So they take that 3,500, they look at different categories, they give us a base rate, $3,660 for each student, that's the base. Then they look how many of those students are free and reduced, how many of those students require special education, how many of those students require additional reading, how many of those students are English, non-English speakers and require English as a second language. So they have these different categories for which they give us a little bit more.
Okay.
But it's one base fee for each student that we hold. Again, students come in and out, so we always catch up for the ins and outs in subsequent years.
And it's based on an average daily membership. So we have to report on every student, and that average daily membership is based on really half days, right? You receive a calculation for each student, and so 360 half days of a school year. And then, as Maria said, there's a whole formula to it, and there's different criteria that we have to ensure regarding compliance. That's why it's important to be in compliance with things like, special education requirements, because when an IEP isn't in compliance, for example, you only receive the credit for the student's attendance for the additional part of the special education piece that comes through adequacy for the time that the child's IEP is in compliance, for example. So there are all these additional factors. One of the things, in addition to that, and I'm going to try and be careful with what I share, and Maria might have to clean up for me, but Kerry Ward and I participated in a conference, a Zoom call with the New Hampshire School Board Association, and Barra Christina explained, this to us as well. But one of the things, the nuances, is that even of this phase-out grant that we're receiving money, one of the things with respect to the students, some of the students who might even be accessing that funding, we don't know whether they were here in the last 2 years or if they were ever even here. We could probably figure it out because they could provide us with the SACID numbers, the student identification numbers that the state has, but it's not even worth really looking at it because it's not going to change anything for us. So whether or not we're actually losing funds it's not impossible, but it's difficult and probably not worth trying to even figure out.
Okay, thank you.
I also asked this gentleman from the DOE if he could come and speak to the school board and the budget committee on the night that you guys are meeting
Yes.
together. So that way we have everybody, all the interested parties here. He said most likely he thinks yes, and he was actually going to ask his boss, which is Caitlin Davis, to come with him.
Great.
And I also asked him if he could give the adequacy presentation, because we have new members in the board, and I think they really could benefit from having a better understanding of what that is, and he said absolutely yes, they can do that.
Excellent.
So hopefully we will have them here.
Maria, I'm just curious, is there a name for this voucher program?
Is the EFA
So the educational funding, freedom accounts?
Correct.
Freedom Accounts,
It is the
yes.
Education
Also-
Freedom Account.
The program that costs the state like $8 million right now?
No, the budget is 9 million. They have used so far 140,000. So that they have to be very careful with what you read. There's
Yes.
a lot of politics involved in this. This is what he told me. He said, please suggest people to be very careful what they read. If they need information, go to the Department of Education website, read your information from there. It's a lot of politics involved.
Facebook was.
Yeah, Facebook is your,
I'm gonna, yeah,
Facebook
well,
is your source of, your best resource for this and for everything.
yeah, I appreciate that.
First source.
One of the keys, I think, that Maria shared was that one of the criteria is the free and reduced, or, the income level that you need to be below in order to access it. It is significantly lower than most people would expect, so access is difficult.
The guidelines are very strict, they're very similar to the free and reduced, and they have the income table, and you have to be below the 300%. Under 300% under the poverty line. So it's not like I'm gonna pull my son out of a school and I'm gonna pay for him to go to a private school because I want to. Well, my tax dollars are not gonna pay for that.
Okay. Awesome, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next up is Fran to talk about the exit interviews.
Hi, everybody. So I know at the last board meeting, there was some discussion about our exit interview process. So you do have an executive summary where I kind of summarized it. Basically, what we've been doing is when employees are leaving the district, we usually do like a kind of a benefit letter just to summarize what, how their benefits are going to be ending. And we attach an exit interview as a paper copy. It's quite lengthy, actually. So I think one of the questions we had is how many we received. So we started sending them out again in May of 2022 through some a lot of transition that we were going through when we became our new SAU. And so we honestly really didn't have a good idea of how many we sent out, but we did get 3 back. So what we've decided to do is we're going to go back to July 1st of 2021 and send exit interview forms to anybody that voluntarily left the district, so we can try to capture that data. It's a little late, but we may still be able to get some information. One of the things that we've actually made a Google form for the exit interview, so it'll be electronically sent out, electronically submitted, a lot more chance of getting it back versus trying to have it mailed, a lot easier to fill out, and also a lot easier for us to actually be able to look at the information, and we can actually, kind of figure out better than some of the paper copies that we get as far as, what schools are, where we're getting the information from as far as the schools. And it actually comes up with these really, really cool graphs that show you, some of the reasons why people are leaving, and basically an easier way for us to kind of look at and hopefully be able to report back. So the one thing about exit interviews is a lot of times, we get them and we just kind of store them in a file somewhere, even on a computer. And so my goal would be to take that information and share it with SLT, maybe quarterly or more, depending on how much we get back, because I think that is some good information in an aggregate form, of course. You know what I mean? Most of the time, some of them, we usually don't require people to put their name. Sometimes they do, but we are asking people with their position and their title to help us get a better understanding if it's more educational or if it's maybe an office position. So that's kind of where we are right now with exit interviews.
Yeah, thank you, Fran. I think it would be great once that process is in place to maybe have the board, at least once a year, sort of get to see what those reasons that folks are leaving the district. I think that would be helpful to strategically plan as we continue to move forward. Any questions for Fran?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran.
Thank you.
Last is the assessment calendar.
Mrs. O'Leary will join us for that. There she is.
Sandy, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it. So I know there was a request for an update on assessment data. So I've given you a calendar on the second page of the executive summary that gives you the assessment windows that the state releases to all school districts annually. So right now, for our state assessments, those are windows. Each individual school will organize, specific grade levels, when each grade level will take the English Language Arts assessment, the mathematics assessment, science, SAT school day has already been selected, as has the 11th grade state science assessment. We do also administer the iReady benchmarking assessment. That was new last year, K-8. So this is year 2 in that. We've just finished and completed our fall assessment window and have access to those results. Families of students across K-8 should have received their score reports last Friday. Those went home. We did look at our district school grade level results in iReady with our principals at our most recent meeting earlier this month, and intend to bring those results to the Curriculum Assessment Committee when we meet, which is November 1st is our next meeting. So we're happy to bring those here to speak to that. We can do that sooner than later. The other information that I think is important for you all with regard to when we can share results is state assessment results. We retrieve those from really 2 platforms. And for the past 3 or 4 years that we've been presenting, we've actually shared data that comes directly from both of those platforms, because sometimes there are small variations in the data. And so essentially when our students take the state assessments, it's in the spring. It can range anywhere from late March for the SAT all the way through May. Sometimes those windows go quite late. We are able to see individual student results, generate student reports. We mail those home to families prior to the end of the school year. We have access to preliminary data in the state assessment platform. It's called TIDE. It's a platform that we use to administer the state assessments. Those are preliminary results, and so we have looked at those. We looked at those with our leadership team back in June. What those results are not, they do not include state cut scores. And so what I mean by that is the state assessment system, or the New Hampshire statewide assessment system, or New Hampshire SAS, is our federal state accountability system for, there are all sorts of things that are tied to this. And they establish cut scores on a scale of 1 to 4 at the state level with regard to proficiency. And so students who achieve a 3 or a 4 on those assessments are considered proficient. Those cut scores are not established until after those results are in. The state does some digging in the data. They sometimes students who in the June assessment platform could be considered proficient. Depending on those cut scores, they might come back and be at a level 2, which would be approaching. Sometimes it goes the other way, but there are some fluctuations that happen. So that's one important point to be aware of, which is why we say they're preliminary. We don't have access to state averages until the official results are released. That's usually late November, sometimes early December. So we don't have those yet either. And then finally, participation data. We had a waiver. I think we talked about this last year when I presented state assessment data. But because we do receive federal funding through grants, we are expected to meet a minimum threshold of 95% student participation in our state assessments. So parents have the ability to opt their children out of state assessments. And we inform them of that right. We have a process for that. A letter goes home every spring prior to the state assessments happening. And we do have some families who opt their children out. However, if the percent of students at a school at a grade level district-wide falls below the 95% minimum participation threshold, any percentage below that, districts are penalized with scores of 0 for students with regard to accountability. And so our spring assessment results that we've started to look at, right, do not include that penalty. And again, sometimes it's minimal, sometimes it has little to no impact, other times it's more significant, but we track that as well. And so when we have been sharing with the school board for the past few years our results, we try to share the participation data as well. When parents are looking to opt their children out, right, obviously respect their wishes, but we're also trying to inform members of our community with regard to the penalty and the impact that we receive. And so we anticipate that those results, the official state level results, will be released from embargo. The data right now is known as being under embargo by the Department of Ed. That'll likely happen at the end of November. We don't have a date yet, but that's when it's been for the past, I'd say, 4 or 5 years that I've been monitoring this. And so once we have access to the data, we'll dig in and generate all the reports that we generate for our admin team, our teachers, and we're happy to bring that here to do a presentation like we've done in the past. So, yeah, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do we think in the spring, perhaps I misheard, that greater than 5% elected not to participate?
So we did track participation data. Happy to say in most schools and most grade levels, we did meet our minimum participation. There are some pockets. We tend to see lower participation at the high school. But I could pull that up. But I think holistically, our participation rates were a little bit higher than they were the year prior. The year prior, and also during COVID, we had a waiver. The state gave districts a waiver during COVID, knowing that many districts and many students may have been remote only, depending on the district's instructional approach during COVID in 2021 and again 21-22. Last year, we did not have a waiver. In 2021, we did because the state required administration of the state assessments in person. And so for students who were remote only, that would have required them coming to the buildings. We informed them of that. We allowed them to come in. We made arrangements for that. But many families opted to not do that. And so the state did not penalize districts last year for participation. But they informed us last spring that they would once again be initiating that process.
And we're proactively reaching out in the spring and sending notification that they... When did that start? So I completely respect a parent's decision not to have their child participate. I don't understand, but I respect it. But perhaps I'm being naive in thinking that by proactively sending that out, we're perhaps hitting a bee's nest unnecessarily.
So the state issues every spring an assessment letter. It's the Department of Education develops it. It's through their Bureau on Student Assessments and Instruction. So that's the letter we send home. We do not send the opt-out form with the letter, but we inform parents of the RSA and their legal right to opt their children out. But the process does require parents to contact the school. We then provide them with the opt-out form. We try to have conversations with them, right, to understand really where they're coming from and where the request is coming from. And, again, not to convince them and right.
Paint the full picture.
But just to make sure that they have the necessary information and, right, we're working with them. So, yeah.
Sandy, question.
Yeah.
Where the SATs are state testing and it goes.
Yes. Yep.
Again, for the kids, for their own personal use, but
Yep.
also for
Yep.
our use as a district. Is there ever any thought in us offering the PSATs to all
funny
the
you ask
sophomores?
that.
Then we can, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of other districts, and if we
Yes.
do that, we can see where kids are stronger or weaker, and it's not going to affect our state testing scores.
Yes, so we're actively planning for that, and actually you'll see that it'll be an increase in my budget.
Okay.
So we've been working with Mr. Vaccareza and his team at the high school. We're actively planning, not this year, but for next year, we're budgeting for it.
For the sophomores?
For both. So the plan would be, there are different versions of the PSAT.
Right.
So the SAT school day is our state assessment for 11th graders. The PSAT NMSQT, which is the National Merit Scholarship version of the PSAT, we are planning to administer that ideally in the fall for 11th graders. During the school day, all 11th graders. We're planning on the logistics of this. And then also to roll out in the spring for 10th graders on the same day as the PSAT, or the SAT rather, school day. 10th graders will come to school and take the PSAT. So students, by the time they take the SAT school day, will have had 3 opportunities. It'll be their 3rd opportunity, right? And we'll one of our goals and rationale is to increase our access to data, for students and families to have access to data. The score reports that students and families receive do provide some additional information of the skills that they need to work on. And so, yes, we're actively planning for that. I did put it in my budget.
So for the juniors that take it in the fall and then they're going to take the SAT in the spring,
Yes.
there's not much time really by the time you get those scores to turn around and then do much. But there is some to
Yep.
work on and
Yes.
improvements.
Yes.
But will it then be an action to then work, if you see sophomores that are struggling in certain areas, to try
Yes.
to work with them?
Yes,
In those
ideally,
areas to
yes,
help
yes.
them moving
Yes,
forward?
we're also, contemplating, although we are not looking to do this next year, but just, right, to keep you all in the loop. We're also having conversations about potentially administering iReady to our ninth graders. There are some districts who started doing this. We're trying to reach out and connect with them to have conversations. The iReady program will give you data on students up through 12th grade. So if you have an 8th grader who's reading at an 11th grade level, it is aligned to standards through grade 12, so you'll get that information. That being said, their platform and their instructional program stops at grade 8. So for our 9th graders, having access to that data to see which students in 9th grade may not be performing at the 9th grade level, it would give us additional supports instructionally for them to be able to practice and get data on the types of skills and sub-skills that they need to work on. And so that, the PSAT next year is sort of step one. We're hoping to potentially roll that down. It may not be iReady, but that is something that we're actively looking at right now. So.
Great. Any other questions?
Just one, does this district provide SAT workshops for students?
We do, through evening division. We have offered those. Of course, enrollment is limited. That being said, our teachers at the high school in our department, so multiple departments, English, science, social studies, and math, for the past, I would say 4 or 5 years now. We have a 4-week preparation program where the teachers are working collaboratively across departments to prepare students for the SAT. And so the SAT has an essay associated with it. Many of the reading passages that they are assessed on have either a science or a social studies focus. The essays that they write are based on documents, and so they're document-based essay questions where they read things, they have to glean information, analyze, provide evidence in their essay. And so our teachers in those 4 departments have a 4-week sequence of experiences in their classrooms where they are writing a science-based essay focused on content that they are learning and reading about in their science classes. Their English teachers are then giving them feedback on their writing. Similar preparation is happening between math and science as well. So, yeah.
Are the evening slots generally fully utilized?
I don't have that in front of me, but we can certainly look at that. I believe they're pretty popular, yes. Yeah.
So what's limiting us, if they are utilized and there was, in effect, a wait list, is what's limiting us from making it more?
I think it would just be staffing and right, funding. If we have funding to run it and we have staff to teach it and the interest is there, I can't say with confidence,
prep is
but
probably short
yes,
money for
yeah.
helping those students who are driven enough
Yeah.
to do it, and I would, if we could remove some stumbling blocks.
Yeah. I feel pretty confident in saying, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know that our high school team are very attentive to the requests and make every effort to honor any and all students who want to take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
All right, administrators report.
All right. Should I go first? Sure, okay.
Don't take his thunder.
I hope
Just
not.
if he's got something to
Stay
say,
on
let him
track.
say it, okay?
Give you bullets.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Digest, here we
No,
go.
I'm just kidding. So passion projects, back to passion projects. This morning, we met with a pretty good group of us. It was members of the Atkinson Garden Club, Pollinator Pathways of New Hampshire, Mr. Mentz is the principal, a couple of teachers, the director of plant operations, of course, Carl, and director of grounds. but we were led by a 7th grade student, Haley McDonald. So Haley was also here last year when Hunter and Samantha were here, and Haley's passion project was fixing up the middle school courtyard. And it's taken a little longer than we expected, but it's really a great group of folks, and it's really expanding into something that has an academic approach to it as well. So we are going to begin doing some cleanup next Tuesday afternoon with the Timberlane Middle School Garden Club. Several of us will be meeting over there in the afternoon. We're going to do some cleanup to prepare the area. But in meeting with Mr. Runyons and Mr. Moore, there are a number of things that will continue throughout the year through their science classes. And it's, the Atkinson Garden Club and Margie Bean from the Pollinator Pathways of New Hampshire, really gracious and really supportive of moving forward with this project. So there are a number of different phases that we'll look at with that project as well, but a good, strong academic connection as well, so it's really exciting. I won't go into, the further details. We're going to start with the cleanup, and then we'll get back to you and let you know how we're doing and what our plans are moving forward. So we have completed school safety training in 3 of our schools so far, and we have 4 schools left. And in addition to the 4 schools, while we do not have it scheduled yet, we will also be doing school safety training for this building and our staff here. So far, it's been met with positive participation. We've heard really good comments. I've spoken with the principals and some other folks who have really found it to be beneficial. Actually, Kelly Brooks is one of our trainers. Carl is one of our district staff trainers. We're incredibly grateful to them and to all of the local fire and law enforcement who are supporting us through these efforts. It's going very well, so we're grateful that we have this movement underway. And at the Performing Arts Center, there are a number of upcoming performances, so please check the website for that. This Saturday, the 22nd, is Wizarding Day, and it's a family event. Come in costume. As you can imagine, it's focused on the Harry Potter theme. You can come dressed as one of your favorite characters or from one of the wizarding houses, and they're going to have a number of events, and it sounds like they'll actually have some form of contest with that. So it sounds like fun, especially for those Harry Potter fans. Also, the Timberlane High School Music Department, partnering with the Timberlane Music Association. We are going back to Disney this spring, so that's exciting for everybody. And so that Disney World trip in Florida will happen during April vacation. So there are a number of fundraising activities happening now, a couple that have happened already. There'll be, if you go to the website, the Timberlane Music Association website, timberlanemusicassociation.org, you'll find those details. The upcoming fundraising events at like Five Guys and Panera and Papagino's. I always enjoy those ones that you can either go eat in or you can do takeout. We had Uno's just the other night, which was part of that fundraiser. So check those out and support our students going to Disney World this April. As Matt said, parent-teacher conferences for elementary and middle school were today. I expect they're all done by now. But if you either didn't have the opportunity to participate in one of those, or we know that they're short, so if you feel as though you really need to get in touch with one of your child's teachers, please don't hesitate to do that. Reach out to them via telephone, via email, make a connection with them. Our teachers are always looking to partner with families and, do whatever we can to support our students' success at school. So that partnership is essential. So please do not hesitate to reach out to your child's teacher, especially if you have significant concerns that you need to be followed up with. And that's all I have, and I'll kick it over to Justin. Thank you.
So just 3 quick things to share. One's kind of currently going on right now. We want to give the board an update, and 2 are just short here in the future. So in the vein of trying to leverage all of our available resources, the leadership team here has taken a little bit of a dive into some historical data for the last 3 years in terms of staff absences here in the district. In addition to that, getting an overview of those 3 years, We've kind of pruned through the substitute pool we have. We've identified active substitutes. Those folks have been in our buildings in the last year and providing active service for our kids, and that number is around 100 right now. So the next effort is to continue to engage those folks, seek more information from them about their experiences in our school to be able to learn from that as we try to continue to grow that group. And we're also looking at our systems that there's a lot of players involved when someone is out, and there's a couple of systems that we use that making sure that they're talking to each other in an efficient manner so that we're able to leverage and get that staff in the building. So more work to be done there, but we certainly want to provide this group an update that we're still trying to execute those things about getting great staff and great adults in our buildings. The second is, as real quick, is Ginger Drexel, the student director, or the director of student services, has connected with CLM, and they're going to be coming in and meeting with our leadership team for some collaborative conversations around mobile crisis units and ways for us to continue to support students that are in crisis, whether they're in our buildings or outside of our buildings. So we're going to get some training and maybe some professional development from them with principals and directors coming up here soon. So again, just continuing to extend as much service as we can to the families and the kids that we're working with in Timberlane. And lastly, I'll end with, I think I'm going to attend my first high school football game tomorrow night since 1995, I can remember. So I'm excited to do that here at home. So hope to see people there.
Excellent. Thank you, both. We don't have a personnel report. So committee reports, we can start. Brian? Nothing. Awesome. Mark?
So we already hit policy, you covered that. Let's see, negotiations, as you know, were going on, negotiations / car repair. Recently, we're all working hard with that. A week ago today, BudCom, we met and we had the heads of the 5 schools come and talk to us about their budgets. They discussed, overrides, underrides from $1,000 or more from the prior year budget. In general, there was a real effort to try to keep it as tight as possible, being cognizant of the environment and the economy that we're in. That being said, some of the greatest cost overrides were for things that were out of their controls, such as printing and actually finding paper, which is not as easy as one would think and much more expensive. Some things needed. Sandown Central, about $1,000 over last year's request. Sandown North, about $5,000. Pollard, $24,000. Pollard was $241 over last year, so they really tightened the belt quite a bit. Danville, about $1,000, and Atkinson, $16,000. I can go into details for all those with anybody that is interested in after. But there was a real effort to try to tighten the belt, and they were all aware of the situation that we're in.
Thank you. Kristen?
Oh, that's me, huh? Safety committee, we've met, we have, as everyone's aware, we're doing safety training throughout the district right now. We've done Sandown Central, the middle school and the high school this week, all the elementary schools. The remaining ones will be done next week. Again, early dismissals are being done for that. From what we're getting back, the feedback again, we're working with all the local law enforcement and other staff members here, and it's all going very well. Very, very positive by the staff, and eventually this will roll over and we'll be bringing some more training in to the schools with students and whatnot, and moving in that direction. Also, we've talked about having a presenter come to the PAC from ICAC, which is the Internet Crimes Against Children, to be doing some presentations there. Mainly that's going to be for all parents. It's highly recommended for all parents, but any students, we were going to ask for 6th grade and up, so that will be getting scheduled soon, and we ask people to really look into that. There's a lot, what was kind of funny, because there's a lot that we talked about that people are aware about, and you think you know as a parent, but then there's a lot of things that even the presenters didn't know that people during the meeting brought up and threw out as, oh, what about this? And it was a new subject. So there's always something new, and as much as a parent as you think you know you're on top of things or watching things, there's so many little twists and turns to all the internet things and all the apps that these kids are on, that it's just a great resource to hear it and know what's out there. You can't do it all, but it's if you have some idea of really what's happening, at least it makes you aware of it. So again, that is not scheduled yet, but it will be coming. I just want people to be aware of it because I think it's a very important thing, and we're hoping that we're going to get good attendance at that.
Likely the first week or so in December was what they told us to expect.
Yeah, so, then, again, we'll have another safety committee meeting on November 8th, and lots of things are coming out of it, and I think there'll be things that'll be coming back to this board to discuss, most likely in non-public, just by the nature of the discussions, but things to be considered, but a lot of good feedback and things are happening at those safety committee meetings, so, that's really all I got right. Oh, and, well, I'm sorry, and Carl's not here, but, we met with Carl and Maria and Sarah and went over, again, a lot of the facility stuffs and the things that we're talking about with, the CIP, so nothing more really that I need to add on that right now, because we've kind of exhausted that, but.
Okay, thank you. Nothing to add other than just negotiations with the 4 units are ongoing, and they'll continue to keep going. Kim?
Nothing, I already talked about CIP.
John?
Wellness Committee met last week with, it was very well attended by several members in the district, which was great. Kim and I were able to go. I learned a lot about the committee. They really do a lot in the district in terms of trying to promote wellness, not only for our students, but also for our staff and faculty, which is really encouraging to hear. So we did a revision of the mission of the committee, so not just really focusing on the physical aspect, but obviously the brain is part of the body, so we need to consider mental wellness as well. So there'll be some initiative and conversations around that, along lines with some of the other things that the district's already doing. We set some goals and we set some dates for the rest of the year, so I'll be looking forward to giving more information.
Excellent. Katie?
Nothing for me.
Michael?
So, the newly formed Transportation Committee will have their first meeting next week. On November 1st, Curriculum Assessment Committee will have another meeting. And the Strategic Planning Committee met earlier this week. We reviewed some of the SurveyMonkey data that went out to the students, and we also reevaluated the thought exchange in conjunction with the results from the SurveyMonkey survey. And now we're at a stage where we're going to develop some themes and start to consider creating some subcommittees related to those themes.
Excellent.
Oh, I do have another, Transportation Committee is meeting Tuesday
Yeah,
Great.
to review the bids.
to review the bids.
Two small quick things.
And I do have another, I don't know.
Yep, go ahead.
I want to bring up buses again. I've had several Plastow families and parents reach out regarding bus scheduling issues in terms of students arriving to school very late, 8:40 or later, and coming home after 4 o'clock, 4:15 and 4:20. And this has continuously been an ongoing issue since the beginning of the school year. It has not gotten any better. It's actually gotten worse in some circumstances, that they're getting later and later. For one instance, one family reported to me that she tracks her son on an app and that he lives 1.6 miles from the school but travels 10 miles before he gets home. And I find that very frustrating for that family while they're sitting there waiting for their child to come home in the afternoon. They're on a bus for almost an hour after school ends. So I understand there's a shortage, but I'd like to have some type of further conversation. I know I'm on the transportation ad hoc, so I'm sure that will be discussed next week, but a lot of these families are feeling that their emails are not being responded to or even acknowledged. They filled out the Google form, but they're done filling that out. They just are absolutely getting, as quote unquote, 7 of them are in my neighborhood that came to my home, crickets. So I think it's something we really need to figure out sooner than later, especially where it's getting dark out, and kids getting home at 4:15 in the dark is unacceptable. So.
Thank you for bringing that up. It sounds like the Transportation Committee is the perfect committee for that to really be discussed, and hopefully we can move forward on some of those issues. You had 2 things?
Quick things. The school bucks on lunch, the cost of lunch has gone up, but there's a maximum amount that you can put in. So when you go to renew your child's account, you can only put in so much. But they charge you every time you put in. So that maximum amount goes by pretty quick if you have a child getting lunch every single day. So you're constantly getting hit with that $3 fee every time you have to go add something. Is there any way we can talk to them, or is that our control, or is that their control?
That's a Ken question, but yeah, we cannot.
I mean, it's just, because it's set at $120, which people go, oh my God, but $120 when your kid gets lunch every day and potentially one drink or one extra is gone in a month. So you're just, people,
It's an ATM fee, but you can only take out $20 at a time.
right, and that's the thing, but, so,
There's another option that you could possibly do as well. I actually have worked with parents, and if you would like, you could mail a check into the SAU, and that way you could avoid the fees.
can we get more of that information out to people, though? I mean, one way or the other, because I've seen parents talk about it, it's come up to me, and I didn't realize, because I was never putting in that, but when I got the notification this time, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try it,
Yeah.
and I realized, wow, they're right, so,
The fees, we've looked into the fees, and I tried to debate them, tried to get them to lower
yeah.
because of the credit card fees associated with it.
And that's fine, but if they're then gonna like
Let's try and
cap you,
raise- I can absolutely work with Ken and see if
I
we
mean-
can get that amount raised, but as an option to avoid the fees,
yeah, to mail a check
you
in.
can mail a check in, just put your student's ID number on there,
Okay,
and we can, have it deposited and then put the money into their account for
Okay.
the food service.
so maybe if we could kind of do something in conjunction, figure that out, and then get a notice out to everybody that here are your options, and we've raised that, because several people are getting very frustrated with it, and I realized why when I went to go up mine this
And
time.
they can also accept checks at the register with the kids as well, but we
Okay.
can send out a we can work with the food service and see what we can get out to parents.
Okay. And then I'm just gonna make a quick plug for the sophomore class who's doing a fundraiser as well. So anyone that doesn't wanna bake on Thanksgiving, you can buy the Texas Roadhouse rolls and their butter, and that's their fundraiser, and it's on the high school website, so you can order them, and then you pick them up here at the high school on the 17th. And it's a fundraiser for their class. And also kudos to the sophomores who beat the juniors and the seniors in bubble ball and several other events at the carnival, and including lip sync, so way to go sophomores. So, that's it.
Okay, thank you. I think that,
Maria has one thing.
So I just find out it's actually my school box.
Yeah.
Who sets up the limit of the amount.
Yeah.
So I will probably set up a call with them. Go through it and see.
Yeah. I mean, even if they can figure out what an average semester would be. I'm doing it twice a year makes, rather than it's like every 3 or 4 weeks, you gotta hop on and put it on and get hit with that fee, so.
Yeah, I'll talk to them and just give you an update.
okay.
Sending in a check makes, yeah, I know,
All right, so that will conclude our public session. We will have a brief non-public session under 91-A:3A. So,
I'll make that motion.
thank you,
Second.
thank you. We need a roll call for that, please.
All right, Michael Boucher,
Yes.
Kate Knutson,
Yes.
Shauna Manthorn,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Steve Finnegan,
Yes.
Kristen Savage.
but, yes.
Mark Sherwood.
Yes.
Kim McCormick, Brian Boyle.
Yes.
All right, thank you.